got a chance to see Emma Stone in Poor Things. Let's find out my review right now. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel and hearing my constant tirades. This time we're going to be talking about Emma Stone's film Poor Things, of which she just won an award for, I think at the Golden Globes, and possibly more to come. I'm not sure. But I am your host, Frank Zenka. I'm an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer, as well as a board game designer. I'm also a working line producer and going back to work. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks. I was kind of hoping to get back on set, this by now, but it hasn't happened yet. So let's talk about Poor Things. But before we do, make sure to give me a thumbs up, a like, and a subscribe, and everything else that you could possibly do to help me grow the channel out. Thank you guys so much, and if this is your first time here, welcome. So let's talk about Poor Things, because remember, as a filmmaker myself, I'm going to look at things a little bit differently than most people do, because I'm going to be looking at it from the perspective of a filmmaker. Most of the time, most of the stuff I do is on low budget. This was a $35 million experiment as far as I'm concerned, because this is an art house film that has a generally, well, $35 million is considered mid-range budget. But still, to have a mid-range budget on something that is an experiment, that's tough, man. So for $35 million, just financially, if you're not sure how this works, they don't need to make $35 million. Because there's also marketing. So let's just say that, to make the numbers easy, the marketing was $10 million, right? And that's low. That is extremely low, because you're doing it on a worldwide basis. So 35 and let's say 10, so you're up to $45 million right now. And then you have to split that money with the distribution company / theaters. Which means this film needs to make $90 million to break even. I don't see that happening, man. I don't see that happening. And the reason I say this is an experiment, because it's over 2 hours long, and I can't tell you what this movie's about. In fact, this is going to be a very odd review for me, because I don't even know where to begin with this thing. So it's a very uncomfortable movie, that's for sure, because there's so much sex in it. I mean, she's nude probably, top to tail, she's fully nude, probably for a third of the film. For sure topless for a third of the film. And, and she barely, for the post, we get to see her feet a lot. She has no shoes on probably for 80% of the movie. So if you're curious about what Emma Stone's feet look like, you won't be after this movie. So I don't know if I assume that they gave her extensions, because by the end of the movie her hair was down almost to her feet. And I say the word feet again. So let's start with what's good. So far the film has made $22 million. That's it. So it's a very far cry from 90. Or even 80 for that matter. So I don't think it's anywhere near breaking even. So Willem Defoe. So let's start with the good. The acting is very good. Again, it's an experimental film, so everybody's kind of doing. I don't feel like anybody stayed in any particular box. So everybody kind of did their own little thing, and kind of elevated their characters by doing so. So the acting is decent, and of course, as you know, she won an award already for it. Do I think this is the best thing she's ever done? Probably not. But she's getting accolades for it, so good for her. If you put yourself that far out there, you deserve to win something. I think that Anne Hathaway made a joke where if you're nude, you should be getting an Oscar no matter what. She did a good job. William Defoe did a good job. Rami Youssef, I think he did a good job. Again, across the board, the acting was decent. No complaints there. The production design was off the chain great. We built a whole other world that's basically inside this one, because they had all the countries that they named are all real countries, but I'm sure that nothing matched. I mean, they had blimps in the sky and all this other stuff that of course we don't have. Everything was they were like things like on wires, and balls that were on wires that also had wheels, so it's all very steampunky. There was green smoke coming out of the ship, and the ship didn't look anything like what you would think it would look like with the costumes that they had. So it was all some kind of a mishmash. So it was this made-up world, and then the DP did some weird stuff too. I knew I was getting weird before I even walked in the door, just purely from the trailer. I knew it was going to be weird, but I mean they took weird to another level. So they had convex and concave lenses. Sometimes you saw it through a fisheye lens where everything around it was black. The images around the periphery of the screen were either stretched or out of focus or whatever. So yeah, it was the cinematography was very strange. But okay, I mean I like experimenting with things, so I have no problem with that. I thought that was as long as they didn't overuse it. I think they overused it in the beginning because the whole beginning is also black and white. So they went from black and white to color, a la Wizard of Oz. And I thought that the black and white overstayed its welcome a little bit too long. So there's that. But the storyline, and again, I'm not going to really go into. There's really no spoilers anyway. Again, let's talk about let's brainstorm about what this movie's about. So it's we find out that she is a amalgam created by this mad scientist, a la in the vein of Dr. Frankenstein. So his father, and his name was Goodwin, but she calls him God because God is the first three letters of his name, and she has his last name. So her name is Bella Baxter, which is his last name, so she acts like his daughter even though they're not related. And he tells her some cockamamie story about the fact that her parents were killed and left her with him. So we find out, though, that she was a pregnant woman that committed suicide. So she jumped off this bridge while pregnant. So he took the body out of the lake or river or whatever tributary that he took her from and decided to save her and the child simultaneously. And by doing that, what he did was he took the brain of the child, which would be underdeveloped if you think about it, right? So the brain would only be very small. And he put it into the body of the mother, who was brain dead, right? Because she was dead. But the baby was semi-alive, I guess. And so he killed the baby's body and he took the brain of the mother that was dead and melded them together. Okay, so we got to buy that. So basically, she acts like a child from the whole beginning of the film. So, because she's got the brain of a child. So this, I guess, the story is about her finding herself and developing and experiencing over only a few years, right? Because she's learning how to speak, and even though she's an adult, but she really doesn't age throughout the film very much. So it's only a few years, if that. It might only been 1 or 2 years for all we know. So she goes through all these experiences, but she wants to go outside, and he can't have her hate him. So he decides to let her go, even though she's betrothed to his assistant. And she ends up meeting Mark Ruffalo's character, and I am not a fan of Mark Ruffalo. I don't really like his acting. I just think, I don't know how he got to the position he's in. His accents usually are pretty crappy. But I learned something new tonight, because I also didn't even like him as the Hulk. Edward Norton did a far superior job of playing Bruce Banner than Mark Ruffalo did. And then I just saw him in the Nazi film, or the World War II film, I should say, What the Light Sees or whatever, and I thought he was horrible in that. And here I learned, though, you make him a dick and a whiny bitch, and he can play that role. I don't dislike him in this role at all. I think this matches him personally, in his personal life, perfectly. Playing the little whiny bitch, I thought he was fine in this. I enjoyed hating him. So she has the two guys that she has at home that she really doesn't appreciate, which is her adopted father, who has scars all over his face because, and we find out later that he has scars everywhere, because his father continually experimented on him. So his father was basically a very evil man, but he doesn't even see it that way. He sees it as the guy was curious and just used him as a guinea pig, and didn't hold anything against his father. He calls him an idiot later on, but that's about the extent of it. So, and then he has his assistant. So she takes them kind of both for granted because she wants to see the outside world. So we got the Little Mermaid situation going on. And then she ends up going through these lists of adventures with this other guy, which is Mark Ruffalo's character. And eventually she learns about sex, and she likes sex, and she keeps wanting to have sex, and blah, blah, blah. And she calls it frantic jumping or something to that effect. Furious jumping. I don't know, something like that. She, any kind of, PR type of thing she doesn't understand. But we see her grow. I mean, from the beginning to the end, she's a completely different person. So, she's learning since she's a child. She's constantly learning and learning and learning and learning. And so, she becomes a surgeon at the end as well. So we get to see her go through all these things. She becomes a hooker, so for at least a half hour to 40 minutes, she's a hooker, so, a prostitute in a brothel. So we get to see all these different sides of her, and, her learning about money. And I thought that because she has no problem killing, from the beginning, she was very, if she was a child, a very disgusting child, because, she was, poking the eyes of cadavers out and things like that. So when it comes to the time in the middle of the film where she's feeling something for dead things, it felt out of character for her. And the director, who's been directing since the early, the late 90s, I've never seen anything by him. His name is Yorgos Lanthimos. Never heard of the guy, never saw him. I looked back at his stuff. I've never seen anything that he's done. I think the reason she did the film was because of Tony McNamara. So this is based on a book by Alistair Gray. And Tony McNamara did Cruella. He wrote Cruella. So they obviously have a past already. So I think that's why she did this film. It's because he went to her with it. So, and obviously she won an award with it, so it kind of worked. But again, it's an art house film. There's not a whole lot of story here. It's more of a character exploration with some world building around it. That's what this is. It really doesn't go anywhere. If you're looking for this huge arc, it really isn't one. It's just purely about her finding herself and breaking the chains and being an independent woman. That's really what this is all about. And that's the only thing I can put my finger on, because it's not a story arc, right? It's not saying, okay, we have a murder and we get to find out who the murderer was. Well, it's not like that. It's purely she's starting here, she ends here. That's it. That's the entire film. And the other characters don't really grow around her. They're just there to support her. So we really don't have a supporting cast per se. It's all about her growth. It's not even about her story. It's about her growth, because it's not about her trying to figure out some kind of a plot, right? Because there's no real plot. It's purely following her growth. That's all the film is. So, and it might bore some people. It definitely could have been cut down for sure. There was definitely too much in some of it, especially during, and I hate to say this, but especially during the whole prostitute situation. I felt that dragged on way too long for what it was. And the relationship between her and Mark Ruffalo also drug on too long. I got it. I already understood without you taking 45 minutes to tell me. And again, even the beginning portion, I thought that was too long. So I think this film could have been cut down at least 45 minutes, and it would have been exactly the same film. So if I was going to rate it, I don't think it was really for me. I enjoyed the acting in it, and I enjoyed the world building of it, but that's it. It's not a film I'll probably ever see again, regardless of whether she was naked or not throughout most of it. So I'm going to give it, if 5 is average, probably a 6.5. It's better than average. It's a better than average film, even though it dragged, and it really was. There was really no story to it. So, and I hope she continues to win awards. I mean, she's always been a very talented person, and so she deserves the accolades that she gets. It's too bad that we get all this weird stuff with her. Although I did like Cruella, so I'm probably one of the few people that did. But I thought the costumes and everything else were very good. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out some other videos that'll pop up as well. Did you see the movie? Did you like it? Am I just over-exaggerating here about the fact that there really isn't so much of a plot? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below as well. And again, make sure you give me a like. And if you haven't subscribed, why the hell not? You got to subscribe. Also, in a few weeks, I'm going to be doing a late pledge for my vampire mob set in 1950s, Lords of L.A. So if you haven't jumped on that, I will be autographing them, etc. And you'll be able to pick up issue 1 as well. So I'll announce that when the time comes. I'm also doing a card game with a cover artist that does Spawn and Spider-Man, etc. Vampirella. His name is Mark Spear, so he's doing the art for a game that I created called Riftstorm. So it's classic monsters. I have been doing some play testing, etc., and doing tweaks. So I've been working on the Kickstarter portion of it and laying that out. So look for that in the next couple of months as well. All right, thanks you guys so much for watching. Have an awesome weekend, and let me know what you guys are watching. All right, talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.